All right, guys. So I just finished. All right, guys. So I just finished some coursework. Went back to the community college across the street. It was a great learning process. It was a great learning process, and one of the things that I had to come to understand very quickly is because I hadn't been in the classroom in a long time, I had to learn how to study again. I had to learn how to study for me now versus the me then, and be able to put that into my time frame, my lifestyle, all of the things that I am now versus trying to not think about what I was back then. It's kind of like working out. You jump in when you're a little bit older, but you can't lift and do the things that you did when you were younger. You may not be as strong. You may not have the same ability to recover, all of those things. So, one of the things that I really found was just the time that I was able to dedicate to it was important. Some of the other classmates that I had who were younger, who had just been in class more, they may have been my age, but were still coming out of other coursework, they were retaining the information at a little bit different rate. Maybe not quicker, maybe not better, but sometimes it just felt like deeper, like they were understanding it better. So I had to understand for myself, I had to take a longer route to get there. So I was spending a lot of time in the library, just going over things at a slower rate. I was figuring out that the time that I could dedicate to it, I needed to. Now, a lot of people can look at things, you know the type, they're just naturally gifted that way. They can look at something once and boom, they got it. Well, I'm not that type. So I had to figure that out for myself, that the time that I thought that I was going to have to dedicate to it, I actually had to multiply almost times two, if not three in some cases, to be able to really say, okay, I have some grasp of this information and I can turn this into something positive on a test and I can make it applicable in real time. But again, these are skills you still got to work on. So you really got to be dedicated to it. So my class started at 9. I was there at 8 every day, just reading before the class. When I got done at 1 o'clock, I would go to the library and stay there until it closed at 8 o'clock most nights. On certain days, I also had lab, so I would go from 9 to 1 and then had lab from 1 to 5, and then I would go to the library. There was never a point in time where I thought, wow, I can just enjoy, just this day without extra study. Now, I didn't every day do the 6 8 hours or whatever extra, but most of the days I did. There were days, of course we deserve the break and we should rest a little bit, or if I was ahead on things, then I would kind of say, okay, I can give myself that treat because I built myself up there. So one of the things definitely is the time that you can dedicate to it. Two is your technique. And I'm just thinking off the top when it comes to this, your technique. What are you applying to? So reading the book was just making me drowsy immediately. Again, because I had to revamp how I studied. I wasn't a heavy reader to begin with. Now I'm definitely not, because it's, at least if it was something I was interested in, okay, it would pique my interest. But when it's like new stuff, it's just like, holy cow, this is a lot. Your vision starts to blur, your mind starts to drift. So I was fortunate enough to have an audiobook version of my book. So what I did is I listened to it as I was reading. So it kept me on pace. It kept me on pace. Now, sometimes my mind drifted still and I'd have to rewind and things like that. But for the most part, it helped me retain the knowledge, and it helped me do it in a better time frame, because now I could say, okay, this chapter is going to be an hour worth of audiobook versus me reading it. It might take 2 hours just because there's other things involved in that, as far as just keeping my mind on point. So using flashcards, that was something early on that I did. I found that, okay, let me go through here and write some things down. Now, I did find that I wasn't taking the best flashcards because what I was writing down wasn't really appearing on the test, but I was still retaining knowledge because of the things that I was writing down. It was still knowledge. It was still information that was part of what I still needed to be learning. So sometimes in the test, they're going to give you a section of this, but my section still applied to it. So there were still some things that in the long run I made sense out of what they were asking for because of those things. And again, knowledge isn't subjective just to what they're going to put on a test. Knowledge is what you are gaining from that. So the gathering of information is always important. Even though my flashcards weren't that great as far as translating to the test, I was still gaining a greater understanding of what it was overall that I was studying. So that was a huge part of it. Be out of the house. Location is a big one. That's why I was at the library so often because, when you're at home, you got your TV. Well, I can do a load of laundry while I'm doing that. Or I can do the dishes. Or I can do this. The neighbor's dogs are barking. I can hear the kids outside playing. Yeah, there's some sounds and noises at the library, but way fewer. And I didn't feel obligated to try to do other things. Like I didn't look over and say, "Oh, that's kind of dirty. I should pick up while I'm doing this or listening to the audiobook." I needed to focus. I needed to be able to focus on what I was doing in front of me with the book, with the audiobook, going over notes, going over my flashcards, any of that. I need to be able to do that. And so sitting on the couch, you're almost a little too comfortable. At least in my estimation, I was too comfortable just sitting on the couch. The TV is like, okay, let me give myself a 10-minute break. That 10-minute break could turn into 45 minutes of watching something. Or I'd look at my phone or, any of these other things. So location was a big one for me as well. Finding a quiet place and just knowing that the library is geared towards reading, towards studying, towards quiet. It builds that sort of environment to begin with. So I was extremely pleased to know, like, okay, going to the library really changed the way I was able to look at things as far as just saying, it's quiet, I can focus, I can study, and it wasn't a place that I didn't enjoy going. I've come to actually enjoy it. So even though my case study is over, my work is over as far as the coursework, the library is still someplace I would enjoy going. As a matter of fact, when I had to keep taking tests after the course was over, went right back to the library. Now, I gave myself a few days off because it was tough. We went through a lot. It was an advanced course, so the learning curve and time was accelerated. But, shout out to my classmates, my instructors, the evaluators that came in. All of those people helped make my process. That's actually one of my classmates. Shout out to James. Hey, I'm in the middle of doing a YouTube video. But what was it that you found for studying that helped you?
Just be able to talk it out, with somebody and sit there and be like, okay, this is like I don't know. For me, being able to talk about it and be able to open my mouth and actually verbalize the words,
right,
kind of helped me out a lot personally, especially when it came to tests and stuff like that. And be able to, if something didn't make sense to me talking it out to somebody and them telling me, oh, this is the reason why. Oh, then it clicks with me instead of me trying to figure it out myself.
That's a huge point. I hadn't even gotten to that. I had gotten to learning to study, how I studied, like taking notes versus flashcards or, using the audiobook, going to the library. So I hadn't even gotten to that point. That's a great piece to have in there, which is very important because we did a lot of immense work from my end. It helped me really deeply to be able to sit and just talk and, brainstorm it out because to your point, a lot of times when you try to figure it out yourself, you don't see that one piece of something that makes that answer right or wrong.
Yeah. I mean, that helped me out a lot. So is this for the oral interviews and stuff like that?
I'm just putting something out just for my channel, just for people who don't know how to study. Like, I had to relearn how to study. It had been so long since I've been in a classroom that it was just like, this is just shared information that you're going to have to revamp yourself. It's like working out where you don't always just jump back into the gym and lift the same that you did in high school or in your 20s when you're in your late 30s or 40s. It's not the same.
Exactly. Yeah. Just because you were able to lift 300 pounds one time doesn't mean you can do it 25 years later.
Exactly. Right. And to your point, that much later, nor should you probably. Like, your body's changed so much that 300 pound, I'd rather be able to lift 1 pound 300 times rather than 300 pounds once.
Exactly. Later, brother.
Later. Excellent point. James and I went to the library. So I was going to the library initially by myself, and he and I started to recognize work ethic is another one. Let me just say, so me going in early and staying late, that man was doing the same thing. He was going in early and then he would have to do other things. But once he realized, and we talked about the library, he was right on it. So work ethic is another big piece to this. You can't just slack it off and say, well, I got time to do this or I got time to do that. If you've dedicated, if you've paid money, if you've said, I'm going to, take this course or whatever else, you got to put a lot into it. And sometimes the sacrifice to push off the things that we would find pleasure in or entertainment in, you got to kind of push off. But he makes an immensely great point as far as having someone else. And that was one of the things that I tried to really implement right off the bat was getting phone numbers and, hey, let's have a study group. The younger students, they weren't really understanding it. They all wanted to, and some of the other guys, shout out to Dan, he was in the next class over. He's a little bit older, and he said all of the younger people in his class, they all wanted to, connect on that app, and they wanted to be able to just, text and back and forth. And me, James, and Dan were kind of a little different, era. So it was, we like that sit down where you sit and talk with people and you like bounce those ideas, and it's not a debate, but it's like a meeting of the minds and things like that. And we got really good results going over practice tests, going over our notes, and those things translated well because we did well in testing as far as taking our test because of the things we had prepped together. So early on, before class, we'd come in and go over stuff together or just, talk things out. And that was a huge part of it. So I would definitely throw that one in. Shout out to him for that because that was a great point. I don't know. Do you guys have any other points when it comes to that? I would also always go back to the beginning. Even as we got further into the book, I would go back to the beginning and just take refreshers with my flashcards and things like that and say, oh, there was so much here that's getting compressed, that there were things that I'd forgotten or that I knew, but just it still wasn't like at the forefront because we had moved on so quickly. But then as I revisited it, I realized, oh, I know that. And so that was a good feeling as well, just to be able to kind of go back, boost your ego a little bit, refresh your memory, and then still understand that you've grasped a lot more material than sometimes we get ourselves credit for. So I don't know, guys. What are your thoughts? I know I went on for a little bit here, but what are your thoughts when it comes to the studying, when it comes to getting into things? Did you find you had to revamp if you took some time off, or if you had a particular course that was faster, that was harder? How did you address that sort of stuff? I know I asked a lot of questions, maybe not in class, but I would ask questions of my instructors, emailing them, things like that. That was a good thing that some of the students were able to do as far as leaning on each other. Surian, he's another guy. He kind of jumped in for a couple sessions. So there was a lot of good support, and I feel like it was a mutual exchange, but it was definitely one of those things that we needed to be a complement to each other's studying style. James and I definitely had that. Surian and I had that as well. So I don't know, but I'd like to hear what your guys' thoughts are on studying at any level, any subject, even if it's just life, how you look at something now versus when you were much younger. What do you take from things? Because there's a lesson in everything in my belief. You can learn something from everybody or everything that's happening around you. Like I tell my youngest daughter, she likes to scan the stuff at the store. Beep, beep. And I always tell her, your brain is the computer, your eyes are the scanner, and the world is the barcode. You can scan everything there and take in some form of information off of what it is. It may not be high levels of life-shifting information, but that information will translate into knowledge and ultimately wisdom. That's just kind of what I believe. But I'd like to hear what you guys have to think. Ace up the sleeve, advice, comment, experience, and leave it in the comments down below. That would be awesome. And as always, subscriptions are free. So I hope this finds everybody in your place, pursuit, or beginnings of total health, mind, body, and soul. Peace, love, unity, solidarity. And of course, this is where the subscription will pop up and some other videos that you can check out. So stick around. We'd love to have you. See you.